It's the 29th of July and this is your News Bite brought to you by eNCA.com. I'm Marcel Gordon and in your news today, IDAC under increased scrutiny as Andrea Johnson's testimony at the Madlanga Commission draws to a close. Senzo Meyiwa's mother is still holding out for justice. And FIFA looks to privatization to make even more money. After a record 6 days in the hot seat, former IDAC head Andrea Johnson has concluded her testimony at the Madlanga Commission. The unit's internal structures and investigations into senior crime intelligence officers have come in for close scrutiny, with Johnson conceding her office deviated from their processes. She said staff are expected to work within their mandate, but sometimes engaged with people outside the institution. Commission chairperson Mbuyiseli Madlanga asked if she was referring to undue influence.
What could the something, as you put it, possibly have been? Surely you must have your ideas. Because one could easily say it was improper motives. But I'm not necessarily suggesting that. I want your own thoughts. What could the something possibly have been?
A lot of the times, and history had shown that, you find that staff get overzealous in wanting to present their case. But more often than not, you find that they engage with persons outside the purview of the work we're supposed to do, and you are not privy to that engagement. Mm-hmm. In the way things happened this past week, it seems that there are other actors that might have been engaged with for us to be where we are.
And when you talk about other actors, are you talking about undue influence, perhaps?
I don't want to put it so harshly without having any, but to say that persons might have, for motives known to them, cast certain narratives or provided certain information.
The Independent Police Investigative Directorate says preliminary post-mortem results indicate that a Nigerian national who died during a police raid in Bellville last week sustained multiple bruises and abrasions on his back and chest. The police initially said Chika Ebe collapsed and became unresponsive, but now there's an investigation into whether his death is due to police action. eNCA's Asha Esmail reports that the incident started after a tip-off to the cops that someone was in possession of drugs in a complex in Bellville, and members of the SAPS's Public Order Policing and Crime Intelligence Unit went to search the premises.
According to a statement from the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, officers allegedly found substances suspected to be drugs. The statement says that during the search, Chika Ebe allegedly collapsed onto a couch and became unresponsive. Emergency medical services were called in and declared him dead at the scene. Ebe's friends refused to speak to eNCA over fears of being targeted. But last week, one of them detailed what he saw.
They handcuffed the guy was handcuffed and they were taking him around the complex before they take him to the house. That is when the guy passed away. And they beat him up seriously. Some of them was holding a spinner.
A former Western Cape Police Commissioner says police are allowed to use force when suspects resist.
But that force, the use of it and the limitations are being prescribed by Section 49(2) of the Criminal Procedure Act. And that means, among others, that any force use must be necessary, it must be reasonable, and it must be proportionate. And once the police, once they are being confronted with violence and they use force, which is proportionate and in all these three elements which I already mentioned, and they arrested the situation, then that force should stop immediately.
Max says based on the preliminary post-mortem results, the police who were present face the risk of being charged with Chika Ebe's murder. He warns of equally serious consequences if it's found that the police misled IPID investigators.
Now, speaking of the police, the acting National Police Commissioner has announced that Sizakele Djantjies is the new Western Cape Police Commissioner. Djantjies succeeds Lieutenant General Timbisile Patekile, who retired earlier this year. Teachers should be vetted before they are employed to educate our children. Makes sense given the high rate of abuse in South Africa, right? Well, Section 27 had to drag basic education and provincial education departments to court to get them to do just that. The Human Rights Organization brought the application over failures to maintain the National Child Protection Register. It says only 10% of teachers have been checked for sexual offences. Here's Section 27's Tendai Mafuma.
The Department of Basic Education and the provincial departments of education have entered into a settlement agreement, basically acknowledging their obligations and some of the failures, and saying this is what we commit to doing over the next year. So they've committed to vet all the educators that are in the system by the end of March 2027. Currently, there are about 400,000 educators in the public schools, but only about 10%, 14,000 educators have been vetted. So what the department has said, going forward, educators who are already on the system are going to be vetted against the register, and also any new educators that are entering the system will be vetted. So that is a commitment that the Department of Education has made.
It's been 12 years since Bafana captain Senzo Meyiwa was murdered at his girlfriend Kelly Khumalo's Vosloorus home, and his family is still wallowing in the country's sluggish legal system. 5 men are on trial at the High Court in Pretoria for the 2014 murder of the National and Orlando Pirates goalkeeper. His mother, Ntombifuthi, says all she wants is justice for her son.
So mama yini oyifisa ukuyibona ngaleli cala sekuphela iminyaka eminingi likhona uyafisa mhlawumbe ukuthi liphele leli cala nithole ubulungiswa nithole nokuphela kwale ndaba nje ukuthi iphele iyona le ndaba kaSenzo nithole kuphela kwayo.
Yebo ngifisa kwenza ubulungiswa kodwa ke ngiyasho namanje ukuthi ngithemba unele.
Benjamin Netanyahu is facing growing frustration from Washington over the war in Iran. The Israeli Prime Minister met President Donald Trump on Tuesday for the first time since the war began. It comes as both leaders face crucial elections later this year. Now, Trump initially said the war in Iran would last just 4 to 5 weeks. It's now into its 6th month. And every day the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, it compounds a growing cost of living crisis for Americans who will be voting in critical midterms in November. eNCA correspondent James Goodison takes a closer look at the meeting that comes at a very important time for both leaders.
The US and Iran struck at each other last week, but since then attacks have been paused, with reports from within President Trump's circle that munitions are running low and diplomacy needs to take centre stage again. The meeting took place behind the barricade of the White House with no media invited. It's thought the key point of discussion was Iran's nuclear sites. Now, the White House said the meeting was positive, but it is no secret that the relationship between the two men has soured since the start of the war. Nevertheless, with both facing critical elections this autumn, there was a sense that both men needed something from each other in order to shore up their campaigns.
Both of them have to be thinking about the ramifications on their electoral consequences. For Netanyahu, the ramifications look like he's probably in a better position if he continues the war, whereas for Donald Trump, it's the reverse.
Mr. Netanyahu then went to Washington Cathedral for the funeral of Senator Lindsey Graham. An ardent supporter of Israel, President Trump paid tribute to his foreign policy ideals.
He felt in his bones that our destiny is to win, and that his job was to do everything he could to ensure our enemies would lose.
Now, a pivotal week where the president will try yet again to end the war he and Prime Minister Netanyahu started.
In other news, we're keeping an eye on. Severe weather warnings for KZN and the Eastern Cape remain in place. An orange level 6 warning for disruptive rainfall and flooding is in effect in parts of KZN, while an orange level 5 warning for disruptive snowfall has been issued for the Eastern Cape. Authorities urging residents to take necessary safety measures. Further afield, rescue teams in Japan are racing against time after a 7.1 magnitude earthquake struck the southern island of Kyushu, killing at least 13 people. Dozens more remain missing. Thousands of homes remain without power, roads have been damaged, and thousands are pouring into evacuation centers. Rescue crews are searching through collapsed buildings, including a shopping mall where several people remain trapped after an explosion tore through the building. Onto the world of sports now, and UEFA is outraged over FIFA's proposal to seek private investment in its competitions. FIFA announced it was seeking to launch FIFA Forward Enterprise, which would bring together the sale of FIFA's commercial rights. The world governing body is reportedly proposing to sell stakes in the $20 billion subsidiary to run World Cup competitions. However, the plan still needs to be passed by a vote of FIFA's 211 member nations. But UEFA, European football's governing body, released a strongly worded statement that said the proposals crossed the line. And the private investors lined up include the Kushner family. Yes, Donald Trump's son-in-law's family is very much involved. Surprise, surprise. Closer to home, the new Betway Premiership season gets underway this weekend. Defending champions Pirates are in action against New Kids on the Block, Milford FC in Orlando. The Soweto Giants want to pick up where they left off as they eye more dominance. Here's Captain Nkosinathi Sibisi.
Look, I think with us, we know we have to deliver. That's given. As soon as you sign for this club, you have to deliver. And I think last season, wasn't short of something spectacular from the guys. And as I've said, it's a standard that we've set and we have to maintain. So I think also having them, in their full numbers, in their full capacity, whether we're playing in Cape Town, Orlando, wherever, we felt the support, we felt the love. And, I think if we can continue with that, if they can continue with that and supporting the boys, I think we can still deliver what we did last season and even more.
There's been another major upset at the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Former champions Nigeria suffering a late 3-2 defeat at the hands of Malawi. And Team South Africa continued to dominate the pool at the Commonwealth Games. Lara van Niekerk defended her title in the 50-meter breaststroke. Nathan Hendricks earned his second medal, swimming to silver in the S13 50-meter freestyle. In the same event in the women's category, Danica Vinker also secured silver. Now, Team SA also clocked a new African record to win silver in the mixed 4x100 relay, and with it helping Chad Leclos tie as the most decorated medalist in Commonwealth Games history. And that's how we wrap today's News Bite. For developments in these and more, keep an eye on eNCA.com and DSTV channel 403.